Welcome to the Philosophy Zone. Today we're stepping into the bizarre, unsettling, and utterly unforgettable world of Franz Kafka's The Metamorphosis. If you've ever woken up feeling like your life isn't quite your own, or wondered why the daily grind can turn us all into strangers in our own skins, this episode is for you. Let's unpack this masterpiece that's been twisting minds for over a century. Picture this: it's early one morning, and a traveling salesman named Gregor Samsa wakes up in his dingy bedroom. But here's the kicker: he's not himself anymore. He's transformed into a gigantic insect. Not a butterfly, mind you. Something elegant and free. No, Kafka gives us a vermin. A bug with a hard shell, spindly legs, and an appetite for rotten scraps. Gregor doesn't scream or faint. He just lies there, staring at the ceiling and thinks, how am I going to catch that 5 o'clock train to work? Right from the start, Kafka hits us with absurdity that's all too real. Why a bug? Why not a lion or a prince? Because this isn't a fairy tale with a happy ending. It's a mirror to the soul-crushing routines of modern life. Gregor isn't some hero on a quest. He's an everyman, trapped in a job he hates, supporting a family that's quietly ashamed of him. And in one nightmarish twist, that trap becomes literal. His body betrays him, but his mind, it stays painfully human, fretting over details like who'll make the rent or answer the boss's knock at the door. Let's rewind a bit. Franz Kafka wrote The Metamorphosis in 1915, right in the heart of a crumbling Europe on the brink of war. He was a Jewish insurance clerk from Prague, scribbling these stories in stolen hours away from his desk job. Kafka burned a lot of his work before he died young at 40. But luckily his friend Max Brod ignored his wishes and published this gem. It's short, about 60 pages. But it packs a punch like a novel twice its size. And it's not just weird for weird's sake. Kafka's pulling from his own life. The overbearing father who called him a failure. The endless office drudgery. The nagging sense that the world doesn't make sense and no one's coming to fix it. So what happens next in the story? Gregor's family hears him rustling around and bursts in. His mother faints. His father fumes, and his sister Greta, sweet violin-playing Greta, locks eyes with the monster and screams. But Gregor? He's still Gregor inside. He worries about them. Don't worry, he tries to say, but all that comes out is a pathetic squeak. No words, just chirps. Communication's gone. He's isolated in his own home. The boss shows up, red-faced and furious, waving Gregor's contract like a weapon. You're late. What's this nonsense? Gregor drags his bulky body across the floor, trying to explain, but the chief clerk bolts in terror. Gregor's father, usually a lazy lump, suddenly springs to life. He chases the bug son back to his room with a barrage of apple throws. One lodges in Gregor's shell, festering like a wound that never heals. Boom. Family dynamics in a nutshell. Love mixed with violence, dependence twisted into disgust. As the days drag on, Gregor hides under the sofa, nibbling on milk-soaked bread that's too good for him now. The family's world unravels without his paycheck. Dad gets a job as a bank messenger. Mom sews linens, and Greta blossoms into a young woman, taking over as the family's caretaker. But resentment builds. They boarders move in. 3 snooty beards who eat all the food and complain endlessly. Greta's violin performance one night draws Gregor out, mesmerized by the music. For a moment he dreams of sending her to the conservatory. But the boarders spot him and freak out, threatening to sue. That's the breaking point. Greta declares, "We must get rid of it. Not him. It." The family unites in a cold, practical vote. Gregor, hearing this, crawls back to his room, starved and spent. He dies just before dawn, his body shriveled. And the family's reaction? Relief. They wake up, find the bug corpse, and the charwoman sweeps it out like trash. Then get this, they take a day trip to the countryside. Dad, Mom, and Greta, all glowing with new energy. Greta stretches. Her parents notice how grown up she is, and they muse about finding her a husband. Life goes on. Better, without the burden. Chilling, right? But here's where the philosophy kicks in. Let's unpack this. First up, alienation. That's a fancy word for feeling like an outsider in your own life. Gregor embodies it. In the industrial age, Kafka's time, folks were becoming cogs in machines, workers like him slaving for faceless companies. Sound familiar? Think about your commute, your emails, your performance reviews. Kafka's saying, we're all one bad morning from turning into bugs. Not literally, but emotionally. That sense of being reduced to what you produce, not who you are. Philosophers love this. Jean-Paul Sartre, the existentialist king, called life absurd, meaning there's no built-in purpose, and we have to invent our own. Gregor tries. Even as a vermin, he clings to duty. I must work harder. But the world doesn't care. It's absurd, pointless. Albert Camus picked up on this too, with his myth of Sisyphus rolling that boulder forever. Gregor's just pushing his own boulder until he can't. The lesson? Rebellion isn't fighting back. It's choosing to live authentically anyway. Gregor never does. He dies apologizing. Then there's the family angle, pure Freud territory. Kafka's dad loomed large in his psyche, a tyrant who made him feel small. In the story, Gregor's transformation frees Dad from shame, lets him reclaim his role as provider. It's Oedipal drama, son as rival, turned monstrous to be cast out. But flip it. Modern families rely on kids like Gregor to pay bills. When he fails, they evolve. Greta's arc is heartbreaking, from compassionate sister to the one who says, kill it. She's the future, stepping over the old burden. Kafka's whispering, families aren't sacred, they're survival machines. Love, conditional as hell. Don't get me started on guilt. Gregor's drowning in it. Even rotting away, he blames himself for everything. If only I hadn't been lazy. Sound like anyone you know. In our guilt-obsessed culture, social media likes, endless apologies. Kafka's a warning. Guilt keeps us small, compliant. The family, they shed it like old skin and thrive. Radical, right? Bureaucracy's another Kafka hallmark. That chief clerk? Symbol of the soulless system. Gregor's job was soul-crushing before the bug. Endless travel quotas, no sick days. Post-transformation, the system's verdict is swift. Useless, discard. Kafka worked in insurance, fighting claims for a living. He knew the machine grinds people down. Today, algorithms, HR policies, gig economy, same trap. We're all Gregors, one glitch from obsolescence. Identity's the big one. Who are we when our bodies or roles change? Gregor looks like a monster but thinks like a man. His family sees the shell, ignores the soul. Kafka's asking, are we our jobs, our bodies, our relationships? In a world of filters and facades, this hits home. Disability, aging, mental health, sudden metamorphoses that redefine us. Kafka says, society abandons the changed, fight to be seen, or fade, and the ending, controversial as heck, is it hopeful or hopeless? Some say the family's rebirth is triumphant, out from under the dead weight. Others call it heartless capitalism. Gregor sacrificed for their upward mobility. I lean toward the latter. Kafka wasn't preaching easy answers. He was exposing the cruelty beneath politeness. But here's the accessible takeaway. Your worth isn't tied to productivity. Don't let the world bugify you. Reclaim your story. Comparisons? Think Orwell's 1984 for oppression, or Camus' The Stranger for detachment. Pop culture nods. Jeff Goldblum in The Fly. Or that Simpsons episode where Homer turns bug. Even Breaking Bad's Walter White. Transformation into monster, family fallout. Kafka's genius is accessibility. No lectures. Just a wild tale that sticks. Read it in an afternoon. Ponder for life. Themes echo today. Mental health crises. Work burnout. Family strains post-pandemic. We're all a little Gregor, hiding under the sofa sometimes. So as we wrap this episode, ask yourself, what's your metamorphosis? That moment life flips the script. Don't squeak. Roar. Or at least demand better milk. Thanks for joining the Philosophy Zone. If this sparked something like, subscribe, share your bug stories in the comments. Next time, we tackle Nietzsche's wild ride. Until then, stay human.